division would have had a number of programs geared towards assisting and improving the living condition and the housing and social circumstance that persons live under. That's our home improvement subsidy, our home completion grant, and our home improvement grant. We would have held 3 check distribution ceremonies during the month of March that would have been held at Moriah, at Argyle, and at the Works Conference Room. At those check distribution ceremony, we would have distributed over $1.2 million worth of grants to approximately 166 households right across Tobago. All right, so I'll repeat that. At those 3 distribution ceremonies, we would have distributed a total of $1.2 million in grants, essentially to assist 166 households across Tobago. For the fiscal 2013 to date, we would have distributed approximately $4.3 million worth of grants, $3.4 million in the home improvement program, $490,000 in the home completion grant program, and $320,000 in our home improvement subsidy. Right. Of course, you would have, as we indicated during those those awarding ceremonies, it is really this program will get towards assisting persons in the community in improving their living conditions, will be their homes. We have recognized the importance of that initiative, and we continue to ensure that our program is well funded and structured in a way that it can assist persons who are in need of the homes. So of course, I'd want to extend kudos to my staff who continue to ensure that the program gets out there into the community. I'd also want to extend congratulations to the outgoing secretary, Mr. Godwin Adams, and the former administrators who would have ensured over the last couple of years that these programs was given the kind of emphasis that was required to ensure that it continues to remain effective. Of course, to continue to encourage members of the public that that they can come to our offices at the division at Bobtail Building to get forms, and of course forms will be available through the offices of your area representatives, where you can get your forms in terms of improving your homes, whether it is the home improvement grant, whether it's the home completion grant, or whether it is the home improvement subsidy. All, of course, the grants are a total of $15,000. The subsidy is a total of $20,000. So those are some updates on our grants. We have also recognized, as we working towards fiscal 2014, that there is a need always to review our programs, and one of those initiatives that we would be reviewing is our grant program to determine, if the ceiling is, of course, still appropriate or still relevant based on the change in the price of material, in terms of the process by which we select persons to determine how to receive the grant, if our criteria needs to be tweaked in any way to make sure it is more effective, that it is addressing the most needy in our society. Of course, we're also looking at the timelines in terms of how fast the grants are given to the persons in order that they can effect the repairs. And of course, the scope of works, what the grants can be used, what is used that the grants can be used for in terms of your own personal circumstances, if that can be expanded or should be expanded in any way to treat with the needs of as I continue in terms of settlements, I want to just provide updates on two other initiatives that we're doing. We are currently in the process of preparing deeds for persons at the Milford Court Housing Development. There are a number of persons at the housing development at Milford Court who, despite the completion of payments of their mortgage, to date has not received their deeds. We would have done an initial assessment maybe a year and something ago, and in order to facilitate the preparation of those deeds and to finalize that process, we have begun a process of surveying of the bounds within that area. We would have sent around mics in the area, we would have dropped off letters at the residents area to apprise them of this effort that would have begun on Monday last, the 15th, and would run until the 27th of May. And essentially this process being done by the surveyors is to ensure that all all the bounds are in place so that when the deeds are given out, that they are accurate. So this we are anticipating that we will begin to actually give the deeds to residents of Milford Court beginning in July of later on in this year. I'd also want to provide information on three major projects that are ongoing, which is Adventure Phase 2, Corland, the Corland Housing Development, and Belgarden Phase 2. At Adventure Phase 2, work would have commenced in November of 2012 in terms of Zone 1 of Phase 2, where we are currently constructing 78 townhouses. These townhouses are scheduled to be totally completed by January 2014, with 40 scheduled for completion by September of this year, and 38, the final 38 in January. So that at Adventure Phase 2, Zone 1, in one part of the development speaks to 78 townhouses. The long-term plans for, of course, Phase 2 in Adventure will also include apartment complexes and more townhouses. But at Corland, the first phase that has begun would include the delivery of 116 service lots. And that is essentially the lots that will be distributed with all the utilities, and then persons who receive them will, of course, utilize their own designs for the construction of their home, so that this lot would have all the amenities, sewer, water, all the necessary for the person to construct. So we are doing 116 service lots at Corland. Work would have begun there also in November, and we are marking October of this year for the completion of those 116 service lots at Corland. At Belgarden Phase 2, which commenced in October of 2012, we are looking at delivering 45 service lots. Again, in the same model as exists in Corland, where the person will build their own home upon receipt of the lot, but of course they will receive all the amenities attached to it in terms of the utilities, sewer lines, electricity, everything in place. All is required for them to do is to construct. Celebrations of National Safety Week will begin next week, the 26th of April, and run until May 4th, and the division, in collaboration with the Fire Service, TEMA, and the Occupational Safety and Health Authority, will be celebrating Safety Week. In terms of our celebrations here in Tobago, it will take primarily two forms. One, it will take the form of a school outreach program promoting a culture of safety within the school environment. And then two, it will also take the form of an activity that we have had previously, which is our safety challenge, where teams representative from different divisions of the Tobago House of Assembly and from the private sector will square off in essentially a quiz.
Over time, we've noticed illegal activities taking place on the road reserves of the main roads in Tobago, where you see illegal structures being put up on the road reserves for vending, signage going up on the road reserve without authority, cutting off entrances on the roads. So the decision was taken by the division that with immediate effect, we are going to review all construction and even buildings that have already been constructed on the road reserves for vending, and if they're not in the right position, or if they're wrong corners, etc., the owners will have to remove those structures. All advertising signs on the road reserves, on the highway, sidewalk, we are asking the owners to have them removed within a matter of 2 weeks. If not, the division will engage the services of the workers to have them removed. Because we realize that these signs are creating problems for the people walking on the reserve. Also is a distraction to the traffic, to the users of the road. They can also cause sometimes accident, people trying to read what's on the sign. So we're going to be clearing up the road reserve. All entrances have been cut on the road, on the reserve of the highway, because you realize some new entrances coming up. We're going to examine those entrances, and if not waiting the approval of the assembly, they will be blocked off. So we're asking persons not to cut new ones, and those that are there will be reviewed by the Tobago House of Assembly. So in all that, all illegal practices on the main road reserves will be looked at. Vendors are asked to desist vending on the pavement. We see it's creeping back where people coming back on the pavement in Scarborough to carry out vending activities, and this will be looked at. As you know, the Assembly has approved 12 SRPs to the Division for Security to treat with vending, illegal vending, and all these things I've spoken about. We are waiting the police division to give us those personnel to carry out those activities. I want to treat with a few things mentioned by the TUP leader and to put them to rest. The TUP leader and probably his party is of the view and making statements to create mischief in the minds of the public that the young assistant secretaries in the division and the THA in the assembly are not too happy with what is happening in the assembly. And I want to put it on the table, or let the members of the media and the people of Tobago who voted for the party and its 12 candidates that all is well. There's no problems within the party, within the assembly, with the assemblymen. As you know, when people vote for representatives, they vote us as assemblymen, and they have voted us to serve the people. And the Chief Secretary has the authority to give out its portfolio, which he will have done. But no one so far has objected or alarmed that they're not happy with the position given to them by the Chief Secretary. So I just want to put that to rest. Because what should be of concern to the chairman of the TOP is the statement made by the minister of the people, or of the Ministry of the People, of our $1.7 million that was spent before election time. That should be of some concern, that they have come in, spent this money, and they have not returned since to spend some on the people, which if they want to treat the people of Tobago, to give them cards, food cards, it should be a continuous thing and not something that you give at election time. I think that should be of concern to him. Also, he spoke of money given to us for the back pay to pay the workers in Tobago. And I want to say that the Ministry for Tobago Development, you should chastise the Ministry for Tobago Development for holding on to the $615 million that was given prior to the election, that should have given to the THA, coming from the Ministry of Finance through the Tobago Ministry for the Assembly. And whilst the Assembly was making noise with the Minister of Finance, we were told that the money was with Tobago Ministry for the Tobago House of Assembly. That money was given after election. The relationship between the government and the THA there seems to be some improvement as far as the ministers that associate with us are concerned. Because I would have met with Minister Sharma at the hotel where we discussed lots of issues affecting Tobago, and so far he has pledged his cooperation and is now left for him to follow through on his promise, which I will be following up with the minister to ensure that he keeps his promise that he gave to the people of Tobago through the secretary. We are in dialogue discussing the airport renovation. There are some things being done that we not like that we are discussing, which I will, after we hold that next meeting, I will sort of brief the media on that. We'll be discussing the Port Authority, the infrastructure in the port, PTSC, the bus transportation, and licensing the division, which we discussed. And what has happened, he has already given instructions to his PS and all the chairmen who were there and also the managers who were at that meeting, that they must listen to any requests or instructions from the administrator of the division. Funding for Tobago and the workers' back pay. I want to report here that some monies came within the $600 million, but it's not enough to pay the workers. And the Secretary of Finance is in discussion with the Ministry of Finance to get the money to pay the arrears for the workers in Tobago. So the question of where was the feeding of the TOP, that we have the money in Tobago to pay all the workers, that is not correct. So what happened as they released money, they didn't release all, but the Secretary put aside some. That can't pay the workers. And if you start paying some and you didn't pay the others, you create problems. So he's speaking with the minister who is looking into the matter. I would want to compliment the Prime Minister on her speech at the UN. And the part I like very much in the speech, when she spoke of equality with small states and large states. She spoke of the IMF funding of large states and small states. And this is a good statement. And I'm hoping that when the Prime Minister returns to Trinidad, she will put that same sort of speech into practice into Trinidad and Tobago as it relates to Trinidad and Tobago. So that she will know, because she, just a little piece she said there of, the discussion was economic financing arrangements, and she spoke of natural justice. Some of the words in the discussion, which good words. So for the Tobago economy to grow, and the treatment I would like to see she give to Tobago, I would like to see she come back here and tell us that I will now speak to the Chief Secretary and the Assembly as how we go forward on internal self-government, because she spoke of governance, good governance. I would like to see funds, the adjustment in the budget. As you know, they went back and the budget was adjusted and it was increased. But the Tobago allocation was not increased. So instead of we getting an increase, if you take the percentage, we would have gotten a decrease in percentage. Because if we got 4% of a smaller figure, and the figure went up, it would not be 4% anymore. So I'm hoping that that correction could be made on a return to ensure that we get the 4.03% of the budgetary allocation that was afforded to Trinidad and Tobago, in keeping with the speech. Also, I would just like to see that the Tobago House of Assembly, because of the economic development of Tobago, and to propel growth in Tobago fast, that she will say that the Tobago House of Assembly will be given the authority to borrow money from the local banks.
But vendors who want to be like along the street or something, is there any kind of process that they have to go through to acquire the proper permits or that sort
Yes,
of?
you're supposed to, well, when you treated the health to give you one certificate and you have the other one from agriculture. All vendors must get a vending license from agriculture to vend, especially selling agricultural produce. There's a law that was passed that you must get that permit. So what can happen is that if you're not keeping within the rules and regulations, you can withdraw that permit from you.
I know there was a proposal for a new market to be built, new Scarborough market, earmarked, I think was on the Orange Hill Road around Shaw Park. And so recently I visited the market and I understood that that no longer exists. That plan is a dead plan in terms of building a new market in Scarborough.
I'm not aware of the plan that doesn't exist. What I know is that the THA didn't want to start the market. One, because of funding was one of the problems. And two, there was a cry from the public that the THA should not start any more new building until we deliver those we are doing. As a matter of fact, the plans still do exist. And because the road that we're going to be putting in at Shaw Park for the cultural complex is roundabout that we have to put there, that is part of the decision and is done for the market and the cultural complex. How you get out of the area. That is part of the planning. And that plan was designed to take care of the vendors, all the vendors in Scarborough, and that's why they call it a market mall. It wasn't just a street market. It was a market mall, they call it, where you have vending and you had other services, drugstore service, you had taxi service, you had all different services in that compound. So, as you know, is that, as I just mentioned, if the government gives us the authority to borrow, we can surely go and get the borrowing for that building and move forward. We have lots of plans that are there, but the funding is not coming. And the funding you have now, you try to finish those you have, because we have to cut within our allocation. Because when you ask for sometimes $60 million to do a building, all they give you is $5 million can even give the down payment to the contractor. So we have to now pool the resources together and say, okay, we will do 1 or 2 buildings from that funding. And this is sometimes when you see buildings taking long to finish, sometimes they're going slow sometimes. It's because of the funding you have. You have to go according to the funding. You have to keep the contractor going and keep the thing going. Because you do have the full funding that is required for the building. It's never funding all never released by the government.
The Pentecostal Light and Life, before the election, an entrance was promised off the highway. Any movement on that yet?
No, we never promised any entrance off the highway. What we are doing, we putting a road from Montgomery into the Pentecostal Light and Life, because crossing the highway in front is very dangerous. So we want the children to come through on a road. The school has given us some lands to develop the road, and we're going up through Montgomery back onto the highway. So when you get back to the highway, also at Montgomery Junction, to have the smooth flow of traffic, there is the plans to put in a roundabout at Montgomery also.
Mm-hmm. In regards to housing, you spoke about Adventure Phase 2, you spoke about Corland, you spoke about Bell Garden as well. In regards to those where settlement plots are going to be, service lots are going to be distributed, is there a timing on construction for the people who these lots are going to be developed to, saying that you have X amount of years to construct your homes on these lots?
Some developments, as part of your agreement that you sign, there are timelines. Sometimes it has differed in the past in terms of as it relates to the policy of the Ministry of Housing, HDC, the division, the Department of Settlements. But we have recognized and going forward timelines needs to begin. But even more than the timeline, because the issue really is not about setting a time for the person to build. It's really about ensuring that the person has a need and they need a house soon. So it's really about ensuring that you put particular things in place, such as maybe identifying someone to design, ensure that the person have plans that meet approval, and the person have access to financing. So that is because very often the reason the person, when given the service, that cannot build is because either they don't have the funding, or the access to the funding, they don't have a plan that meets approval, something. So what has happened over the years is that we realize that the shift in policy is really about not setting this deadline and then stepping away. It's really about ensuring when the service plot is given that very often you give some templates, a plan that the person can utilize, or you put the person onto someone who has approved designs. You put them onto a group of approved contractors, and you put them onto a funding agency like the TTMF, so that even though the person is getting a service lot that is essentially their own design, their hand has been held to the point where the need that they have, which is to get a home, is achieved.
What is the traffic plans for Scarborough?
Okay.
Especially when the ferry comes in.
Okay, well, it's just yesterday that Dr. Ray Furlong was in Tobago doing the second look at the traffic in Scarborough, because they are doing something for us, doing traffic counts and whatever. They're doing it takes a while, but it's just yesterday. But it's not final, but they have came up with a few suggestions which they're looking at. One is that they are thinking of putting a tunnel under Wilson Road, because Wilson Road, right in the junction there, they always set up a tunnel with a roundabout over it. So that means the free flow will go under the tunnel. When you hear the tunnel, you might feel something very deep. Wilson Road already has a depth. When you take the top of Wilson Road to the bottom where it's going to land, there's a steep, so you don't have to go down very much. Also, they're thinking of looking at Wilson Road being a one-way street, going down and circling back on the Milford Road and keeping it out there. That's what they're looking at, the traffic, how you control the traffic. What we are hoping to do also is to get funding from the government to build the plaza in Roxborough. Once we take all the services in Scarborough to Roxborough, persons would not have to travel to Scarborough to get birth paper, to register deaths and births, and we intend to put in a proper mall in Roxborough. Once we do this, people have to come to Scarborough. So as I just mentioned before, if we can get the funding tomorrow to do the development of Tobago, traffic and all these things will be of the past. Because right now, from Goodwood up to Wynwood, they are now supportive of there's a new Chinese restaurant open in Roxborough. And that has bring some life into Roxborough. People are going to Roxborough now for Chinese food from Goodwood up. Surprising, you see that. The drugstore is recently opened up in Roxborough, and people are now going up to Wynwood.
Thank you for tuning in to another Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council media briefing for the week ending April 21st, 2013.